What does it feel like to be turned away from a place you own, simply because of the color of your skin? Maya Ellison stood in the polished lobby of the Grand Meridian Hotel, her heart pounding with a mix of disbelief and fury. The gleaming marble floors reflected the chandeliers above, and the air carried the faint scent of jasmine from the fresh bouquets at the reception desk. She had built this empire every brick, every dream, yet here she was, clutching her briefcase, being told there was no room for her. Maya was no stranger to struggle. Born in a small Georgia town, she'd grown up watching her mother scrub floors to keep food on the table. Her father, a mechanic, had taught her the value of resilience, whispering to her as a child, "You're as good as anyone, Maya. Don't let the world tell you otherwise." Those words had carried her through college, through the cutthroat world of business, and into the creation of Ellison Enterprises, a hotel chain now valued at $4 billion. At 42, she was a titan, her name synonymous with luxury and innovation. But tonight, in her own flagship hotel, she was just another black woman to the young clerk behind the counter. The lobby buzzed with guests, businessmen in tailored suits, families with designer luggage, a couple laughing over champagne flutes. Maya approached the desk, her navy blazer crisp, her natural curls framing her face with quiet confidence. She'd come straight from a board meeting in New York, her private jet landing just hours ago. All she wanted was a quiet night in the penthouse suite she designed herself, a sanctuary of glass and velvet with a view of the city skyline. "Excuse me," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I'd like to check into the penthouse suite." The clerk, a young man with slick back hair and a name tag reading Kyle, barely looked up from his computer. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but that suite's reserved. We're fully booked tonight." Maya's brow furrowed. She knew the hotel schedule like the back of her hand. The penthouse was always held for her unless she explicitly released it. "Could you check again? I'm sure there's been a mistake." Kyle's eyes flicked up, and she caught the brief, dismissive glance. "No mistake," he said, his tone clipped. "No vacancies. Maybe try the motel down the street." The words hit like a slap. Maya's fingers tightened around the handle of her briefcase. She could feel the eyes of other guests on her, the weight of their curiosity. A woman in a red dress whispered to her companion, and a man at the concierge desk glanced over, his expression unreadable. Maya took a deep breath, her father's voice echoing in her mind. "Don't let the world tell you otherwise." "I'd like to speak to the manager," she said, her voice steady despite the heat rising in her chest. Kyle sighed, rolling his eyes as if she were wasting his time. "Fine, but it won't change anything." He picked up the phone, muttering something to the person on the other end. Moments later, a woman in a sharp blazer appeared. Mess. Carter, the night manager. Her smile was professional but thin, and Maya could sense the impatience beneath it. "Is there a problem?" "Yes," Maya said, her voice now carrying an edge. "I'm being denied a room in my own hotel." Miss Carter's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but our records show no available rooms. Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. Do you have a reservation?" Maya's jaw tightened. She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a sleek folder embossed with the Ellison Enterprises logo. "I don't need a reservation," she said, her voice rising just enough to draw attention. "I'm Maya Ellison. I own this hotel. I own every hotel in this chain." A hush fell over the lobby. The couple with the champagne stopped mid-laugh. The businessman at the concierge desk turned fully to stare. Kyle's face went pale, his fingers frozen on the keyboard. Miss Carter blinked, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "That's impossible," Miss Carter stammered. "Our owner is—" "Your owner is standing right in front of you," Maya interrupted, sliding the folder across the counter. Inside were the ownership papers, the deeds, the contract's irrefutable proof of her empire. "Page 3, if you'd like to confirm." Miss Carter fumbled with the folder, her hands trembling as she scanned the documents. The lobby was silent now, the only sound the rustle of paper and the distant hum of the air conditioning. Kyle stared at the floor, his earlier arrogance replaced by a sickly flush. "I don't understand," Miss Carter said, her voice barely above a whisper. This says, it says I'm the CEO and sole owner of Ellison Enterprises. Maya finished for her. It says I built this hotel from the ground up with my own money, my own vision. And it says that you just denied me a room because you assumed I didn't belong here. The weight of her words settled over the room like a storm cloud. Ms. Carter's face flushed red, and she began to stammer an apology, but Maya held up a hand. Don't, she said. I don't want your apologies. I want you to understand what just happened. You saw a black woman and decided I couldn't possibly be the owner. You decided I was less than the guests around me. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. The lobby remained silent, the air thick with tension. Maya could feel the eyes on her, but she stood taller, her voice steady and clear. This isn't just about me, she continued. This is about every person who walks through these doors and gets judged before they can even speak. This is about the world we live in, where someone like me has to carry proof of my worth just to be seen. She turned to Kyle, who still hadn't met her gaze. You, she said, her voice softer now, but no less powerful. You told me to try the motel down the street. Do you know what it feels like to be told you don't belong in a place you created? A place where every detail from the tiles on the floor to the art on the walls came from my heart. Kyle swallowed hard, his voice barely audible. I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, Maya said. And that's the problem. She turned back to Ms. Carter, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the marble floor. I'll be staying in the penthouse tonight, Maya said. And tomorrow, I'll be meeting with the entire staff. We're going to have a conversation about what it means to welcome every guestess if they belong. Because they do. Ms. Carter nodded, her eyes glistening with what might have been shame or relief. Of course, Ms. Ellison. I'll have the suite prepared immediately. Maya didn't wait for more. She took her folder, her dignity, and her resolve, and walked toward the elevators. The crowd parted for her, some with admiration, others with discomfort. As the elevator doors closed, she caught her reflection in the mirrored walls. She saw her mother's strength, her father's pride, and her own unbreakable spirit. The next morning, the staff gathered in the grand ballroom, their faces a mix of nervousness and curiosity. Maya stood at the podium, her presence commanding the room. She didn't speak of the previous night's humiliation. Instead, she told them a story. She spoke of the little girl who dreamed of building something beautiful, of the woman who fought for every opportunity, of the black woman who refused to be invisible. She spoke of empathy, of fairness, of the power of seeing people for who they are, not what they look like. By the time she finished, there were tears in the eyes of many, including Kyle, who stood at the back, his head bowed. Maya didn't fire him or Ms. Carter. Instead, she gave him a chance to learn, to grow, to be part of the change she was determined to create. She knew it wouldn't erase the pain of the night before, but it was a start. As she left the ballroom, a young black girl, no older than 10, ran up to her. Are you really the owner? She asked, her eyes wide with wonder. Maya knelt down, smiling. I am. And you can be anything you want to be, too. The girl beamed, clutching her mother's hand. Maya stood, her heart full, knowing that this moment, this connection was why she kept fighting. The world could try to deny her, but she would always rise, papers or not, proving her worth with every step. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.